All right, and we are on episode 2 of Pushing Over the Edge. Hopefully, everyone was able to watch episode 1. If you have not, um, there wasn't much that I went over in that video. There were some good tips thrown in there. I can't really say where they were because, you know, there's good tips throughout the whole game. But episode 1 was basically about the basics of the game, such as picking a hand from when you get your tiles and sticking to a hand. And basically, that's a good way to play the game because it's safe. And when I say safe, I mean you have a pretty good shot if you stick with the hand. But if that hand goes out, then we kind of showed a little bit of defense and how to play defense. But today we're going to focus on defense and what defense actually looks like. So today, what I'm going to be doing is I am actually not going to be trying to win. I'm going to try and play defense. It's going to be a little hard to play defense without trying to win, but I kind of want to demonstrate this. I felt like this would be a better demonstration than actually trying to play a hand, because some people might be really might be really far off from a hand in the beginning of a game, um, and you might have to start playing defense from the get-go, depending on if exposure goes out. Let's say you need a pair of 6 dots for your hand and someone calls a pun and they have the other 2 6 dots and a joker. And someone else exchanges that for a 6, and then you have your 1 6 dot, and then your hand is done for. And again, switching hands, we'll talk about that a little later on, but we'll just get rid of some tiles here. I just want to kind of go around. It doesn't really matter what we pass in this episode because, again, giving people hands actually is going to be beneficial for the knowledge aspect because when we're passing tiles, that'll go into the more when we're switching hands, kind of. I'll talk more about what to pass and what not to pass, but again, at this moment right now, the main emphasis of this video is to show defense, and we are actually not even trying to win. We're just trying to display how defense is and what it looks like. So basically, in the Charleston, a lot of people may, do a safe pass kind of like this, where you have 2 tiles that are on opposite ends of the spectrum, or 3. If you don't have a win, then basically it's just 3 of them. Um, and basically, what we're doing right now is we're just trying to get through the Charleston so I can demonstrate how to safely discard and play defense. Again, like I said last video, I don't believe in the term safe discard because a lot of the times, if you think a tile is safe just because it's been thrown out a lot, some player could want it. And well, I guess let's say 3 players get rid of a 5 crack, and there's 20 tiles left, and you get a 5 crack. And let's say, oh, everyone threw it before, so it's a safe tile. I throw the 5 crack. Well, if you look at the card, there is a hand that requires a single 5 crack. And also, it could be a pair. Well, I guess not a pair, but it could be a pun or con, depending on how many jokers someone has. So, again, every tile, I mean, there's tiles that are more likely to be, you can throw tiles that are less likely to be needed, but I don't believe in the term safe because if you act like everything is safe, then you're kind of just betting the bank here. So I'm actually gonna pass a flower because some players may end up. I do this because again, this episode is only for educational purposes. I'm not trying to win or anything. And usually, most of the time, if this was in real life play, I would have never made a pass like that. But again, educational purposes, you guys understand. A lot of people won't be, if at first you're looking at it and you're like, what's going on? Today we're just trying to discard and we're not trying to win because being put in a spot where you're not in the best place actually is better than putting yourself in a place for victory. So, and actually, what we're going to do here is we're actually not even going to pass any tiles. So this is actually going to throw a lot of people off at the table, but again, I'm happy with what we have here to discard. And then we're going to put no for courtesy. So yeah, so again, some key things about defense and how they initiate. Some players may initiate defense if you draw a tile that you know a player may need. If you watched last night's live stream, you did see that I did pick up a I believe it was a 4 bam that this player that was doing a 2-4-6-8 flower hand and needed that 4 bam,
North
and I
wind.
decided to switch to defense because I assumed that they got rid of a joker, meaning they would need the
West
4
wind.
bam. And there was actually only two bams out, so
6
I just
bamboos.
assumed that it was either the 2 or the 4, and I switched to defense knowing that, if I try and get rid of a tile
Six
that
bamboos.
they needed, and maybe they didn't need the 4, but if they did, then I would just be giving them a win. So at that point,
Two
that's when I
bamboos.
switched to defense, because I know that the chances of throwing a tile and a player needing it are higher than
6 bamboos.
higher than most. And I'd rather not give
1
into a hand
character.
than just play a wall game, as they call it. So yep, so exactly kind of what we're doing here.
South
Some
wind.
some things that I like to do in the beginning of the games
North
is
wind.
getting rid of tiles that people may end up
2
wanting.
characters.
If I didn't see a lot of tiles go around, like for example, if I didn't see a lot of 9 bams
West
going
wind.
around, or that, and I draw a 9 bam, I'm gonna get rid of them,
Nine
because if I
bamboos.
throw a tile that someone needs a punter or con on, they might only have one
Four
joker.
dots.
It's gonna force them to commit to a hand. Now I've noticed a lot of people, when they commit to a
4
pun or a
bamboos.
con, they commit to one hand, and then that's when the
7
switching part comes around,
bamboos.
and they're like, oh well, 4 9s goes into this hand as well. So again, it's all about the switching in
Four
aspects,
characters.
but again, that'll be later on
Three
in the
dots.
series. So at this moment, we're just getting rid of tiles here. Hopefully someone will need these tiles. I should have probably passed a little more to get a higher variety of tiles, but we do have one extra game that we are going
North
to be
wind.
playing. So and again, I've never tried this before, so I'm
2
hoping it works
dots.
out, but in my head it worked out. So what we're gonna do is, we did see
Two
that 2
dots.
dot go, so we're gonna get rid of it. So for this
Four
hand, I'm just
dots.
going to imagine that this 3 crack might have been a pair,
West
and
wind.
the pair got thrown out, so now I'm switching to defense.
2 characters.
Um, if you're not really good at switching hands and you don't want to work your brain too hard, playing
Two
defense is a
dots.
little harder than switching
One
hands in the
dot.
early game. But again, I'm demonstrating how to safely discard throughout the entire game, in case you're in a
4
spot
bamboos.
where you're basically not able to switch hands, because you may not
9
want
characters.
to put the amount of
Con.
effort into finding that kind of
West
thing.
wind.
So, but again, if you
1
watch the live
character.
streams and you watch every single time I play a game, switching a hand later on will always be there.
5
Um,
characters.
but safely discarding in the beginning is always, there kind of thing. And that's kind of what goes into the part. So
Five characters.
even if we had a hand going, I always get rid of, like I said, my first thing is to get rid of tiles that players may need.
Hung.
I'm not a huge fan of joker bait,
East
because if I
wind.
keep a tile that might be joker bait till the end,
6
then someone
bamboos.
may want that tile, and that might push them close to Maj. And again,
Nine bamboos.
I'd rather just get rid of it in the beginning, and just if they
Seven
declare, if
characters.
they have a joker and someone else has the
Hung.
same tile, it's really hard to say if they would have thrown it or if
3
I would have.
dots.
So already here we're looking like 5-7. I'm trying to think what this player could be doing. 5-7-7-9.
Flower.
That sounds like a pretty good option. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna actually tuck this in, because that actually, so the thing about
Five
exchanging with this
bamboos.
is it would actually be pure, and since we have the
Three
5
characters.
crack, I am not going to take it. If I was playing a real game, I wouldn't take this until I actually needed it, because I could be pushing
Flower.
them to pier, which would be way more expensive in terms of money
Red
or score.
dragon.
And you know, of course, it's always nice to have that extra joker, but again, you can't really. I don't want
One
to make them
bamboo.
peer. You know, it's highly unlikely with two cons that they're
Flower.
peer, but there's always a chance. So, and of course,
One
with
character.
this as well, if we do push close to the Maj, we could exchange this for a self-drawn if we
Flower.
do get a call. So, oh, White Dragon hasn't been out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of it.
White dragon.
Again, I like getting rid of these tiles that
One
haven't been
bamboo.
thrown out early on. Anything after 50, usually 50 tiles left is where I kind of start going into the defensive mode.
East wind.
And again, I break hands if I draw a tile that someone would need.
Seven
The term
characters.
breaking hand basically refers to getting rid of tiles
East
that you
wind.
know no one else will need because that's your hand.
Two bamboos.
Like let's say you have 4 cracks and someone throws a 4 crack.
Six characters.
All those 4 cracks are pretty safe
Four
tiles to throw.
bamboos.
Oh, I guess I'm saying safe, but they're good tiles to throw because you know that
5
people at the
dots.
table will probably not be playing a hand with that. So,
Two bamboos.
yeah, so let's just keep on going here around. It's really hard to kind of talk about
White
safe
dragon.
discarding. And I'm just referring to it as safe discarding because that's what everyone refers it to. But it's really hard to discard well in the early game because every tile that you
One
have in your
bamboo.
hand probably hasn't been out. So usually around 50. So this is where
bamboos.
this is the part where most people have basically almost had their hand built up and they've had enough time to build it up. And this is
One
where each
bamboo.
discard could, you know, could get someone
Flower.
to the win. So if you do have flowers in your
bamboos.
hand that you're not going to use and, you know, it's later on,
Two characters.
sometimes you just have to go with it and discard it, even though it might be a little risky, but usually I get
9
rid, again, when the
characters.
game first starts, I get rid of tiles that haven't been thrown,
3 bamboos.
and then, like, you know, tiles that could cause joker
Flower.
bait, those are the first ones gone. Because I'd rather, if I have a winning hand, I'd rather discard a tile that I know
Southwind.
is considered safe in terms of
3
Mahjong
dots.
rules than a tile that is considered hot, meaning people would really want that tile. So, like, I'd rather get rid of a tile that's been out 3 times
5
than a
bamboos.
flower, basically, in the late game. Because the flower would be considered hot, meaning other people would need it, versus a tile that's been
7
thrown out 3
dots.
times, which we're going to consider cold. So, hot
Pond.
versus cold. That's how I look at it. Oh, okay. So it looks
Red
like we
dragon.
have maybe a duplicate hand here. 5-7. Maybe this player. Oh yeah, 5-7,
East
7-9.
wind.
That could be an option. Very nice.
Flower.
Okay. So there's a 6 dot. Ooh, that hasn't been out yet though. So we're gonna actually keep this.
3
This is what I'm
dots.
talking about with those tiles.
Southwind.
We're late in the game and we don't have a winning hand here because
8 dots.
our pair got eliminated here.
Pung.
And assuming we, you know, had just 2 random tiles,
6 dots.
when I look at jokers in this episode, they're gonna just be blanks basically.
1 dot.
I usually don't throw the jokers until super duper late,
2 dots.
just because in the end I don't want to throw like a 1 dot
9
at the last tile because
bamboos.
that gives basically the longer the wall goes, the higher the chance
South
someone's
wind.
going to win. So in the end,
1
if a
dot.
potential someone winning is the highest, I'd rather throw a tile that someone cannot get.
3 bamboos.
That's basically why you see jokers thrown at the end, is not only because throwing a name tile could get someone to the
Green
win,
dragon.
but also it's something you can't call, so that makes it
4
basically the safest
characters.
tile to throw in the game. In terms of, you know, call aspect. Okay, so there's another 6, but again, we're gonna get rid of this
5
5 dot
dots.
here. Let's see. Okay, so they didn't want it, so that was a little bit of a
6
risky
characters.
pass there, but I think someone threw it out and didn't want it. So okay, so we have the 1
4
dot
dots.
and then the 2 jokers, and then we can also get rid of this 1 crack here. So that gives us 4
7
safe tiles
dots.
to discard. but yeah, basically when you're discarding and you're playing defense, your
One
main goal is
character.
to kind of see what other people are throwing,
Green
because it's
dragon.
a lot easier to focus on one thing versus multitasking. And if you're not
Green
focusing on playing a
dragon.
hand, you can easily see what people are
North
discarding
wind.
and then kind of go from there. Now that is a skill that is a little more complicated, but
One
again, it
dot.
just takes a little bit of practice. And this, I would say, this is the best way to practice
Six
it because
characters.
you really don't have anything to lose on, online, basically. And if you push a wall game, in real life, people would probably be like,
Seven
what are you
bamboos.
doing? But on here, you don't really
Pawn.
have to deal with that. So, ooh, okay. So this is five.
Nine dots.
What are they playing?
Kong.
1, 3.
Eight
Does
characters.
anyone know what they're playing? Five. I've never seen a hand like that.
Two bamboos.
Oh, 5, 7, 5, 7, 9. Oh, I was like, for a second there, I was like, what in the heck?
Four
But
dots.
okay, and now it looks like this player is pretty close too. So
Nine
again,
bamboos.
we're getting down into that last 10. So this is where those jokers are gonna come in handy to discard.
Six
But
dots.
uh, yeah, and again, we're not gonna need it, but
Green dragon.
yeah, this is just one of the exercises that I was thinking about. And
Joker.
it's an interesting one because when you're in a game
Four
and you have a
bamboos.
hand and it doesn't work out and you switch to defense. Oh, and they self drew a joker. Very nice. um it's hard to say if this is effective because when you're playing in a real game, you build a hand, and then if that hand doesn't work out, you can get rid of that hand, and that's all those tiles are probably not going to be used by people. There might be one or two that might raise an eyebrow, but if you start off from the beginning and you safely discard all your tiles in your hand and start playing defense from the get-go, um, that honestly is probably the best because then you're automatically, starting to pick up tiles people need. And instead of throwing those tiles that people need, that's when you start seeing the like value of certain tiles. Because I feel like if you know the game's basics, getting rid of discards. Because let's say we were playing a hand and we have two tiles to discard. Do you pick this tile to discard or do you go with the other? And I feel like a lot of people just go with the tile that's been out the most. But again, getting rid of a tile that some people need, that's my type of play style. If I see a tile that hasn't been thrown and it's pretty early on in the game, I'm getting rid of it because the worst thing that could happen is someone takes it and then puts an exposure up. But then all these other players start knowing what they're playing, and they may actually have to break their hand if they have tiles that they need as well. So it all kind of works around together. So, and again, players get lucky to draw tiles, and that's the name of the game. But again, getting rid of tiles, I guess that's a big takeaway from this game is getting rid of tiles early on is better than holding them till the end. Because if you have a winning hand and you're gonna, and you have two tiles, let's say a wind and then a six dot, and the six dot hasn't been, it's been thrown out once, I'd rather get rid of the wind as my last tile to be on call than a tile that basically someone may take for Maj. So basically that's what I would say is if we're going for a winning hand, always get rid of the tiles early on. I know they could be called joker bait, but again, using tiles as joker bait is really hard. It's sometimes easy to read if someone's going to take a tile eventually, just because they might be thinking about it in real life. And again, on this application, you can't really see people's emotions, so you kind of just get a waiting period. So it's a lot harder to say if someone's going to call a tile on here. So getting bait for jokers is a lot harder online than it is in person. But again, those joker bait tiles, if you get like 2 6 dots, I may actually end up holding these and then getting rid of one and then the other, because then that would secure joker bait. But holding a single tile for joker bait is not the move, because it's gonna end up hurting you in the long run. Because then this player who had, this player may need the or does need the 6 dot, would be able potentially to build up to even get ready to call the 6, because they might not have even been ready. So yeah, joker bait is a hard topic. But again, being able to safely discard a tile before it goes, before someone needs it. Because even if they do need it, it really forces them into a hand. But then also, these other players, like we discussed, are going to know what they're playing, or have a general consensus of what tiles they may need. So then that'll force these two players to start getting rid of tiles, and then that could also bring joker bait to you. There's a lot of things about it, but that's why this game is kind of difficult, because it's kind of like it's kind of like English. You learn a language, and you know all these words, but then the way people use it, like there's slang, that there's a lot of things that you can learn the basics of the game, but there's a lot of things that just come with experience. And that's why I love this game, is I learn something every time I play it. So all right, so let's take a look here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build up on these pairs like I told you guys, kind of what I was describing last episode. So in this hand, what we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on keeping pairs until the end, because I kind of want to demonstrate what some people, when they first start learning the game, what they may do with joker bait. Because let's say because this 7 crack, really right now, like the 5 bam has more potential than the 7 crack. Um, but yeah, we'll get into it after the Charleston. It's again, this episode was really hard for me, because I was like, how can I display safe discards without, like, because if I play a hand to win, then my true inner skills are just gonna automatically take over, and I'll do a lot of things that a lot of people may be like, what are you doing? So and again, getting rid of that 8 bam there, I might have been able to hold it for 2 4 6 8. But again, we're not trying to win in this episode, we're just trying to show how to basically play defense, because a lot of people may struggle with that. And even if you think defense is pretty easy, there, like I said, watch the last hand at the end where I go over all the things that could happen. There's a lot of things that go into discarding tiles, then a lot of people may not recognize or see. Okay, so here we go. So we're building up on a lot of BAMs here. So I think I'm actually gonna forfeit a 7 crack. So what? Uh, yeah. What we might have been able to do is another thing here. I'm just gonna drop a little tip here. If we didn't need this 7 crack, what we could do? Oh, and they actually are not going to pass anything. So we are actually going to pass no tiles as well, because again, we're not trying to win here. We're just trying to play defense. But this hand actually is a good example of defense, because if we were trying to do the singles and pair hand with BAMs, we do have a gap of 6 and 1 BAM at the moment. And if we don't get those, then we're kind of in the water. I mean, we could potentially maybe do a 3 4 5 flower, 4 5 6, but those may not come in. So, and again, we would have Charleston definitely for 3 tiles, but we're just playing safe defense here. So,
5 characters.
okay. So again,
Five
in the early
dots.
game, it's really hard to say if a tile is considered hot, because
5
we're using the
dots.
hot and cold reference, because I love that reference. I'm going to start using it for now on.
2 characters.
Because you may hear a term hot tile, that just means, it's
8
a tile that
dots.
someone would probably want. But yeah, we're just getting rid of tiles. I see 2 5s that got thrown
2
already, and no one really
bamboos.
called it, so I'm going to tuck it in. Because if I have other discards to get rid of, I'm going to hold this. Because like I was talking about, this is going to
6
be
dots.
a colder tile than something like a 7
4
crack that hasn't been
characters.
thrown, which could be considered hot. So,
4 dots.
and again, this,
2
I
bamboos.
wouldn't. This activity is really nice, because it also allows you to kind of see, like, you're not technically
East
playing the
wind.
game. You're kind of a bot in a sense, but it kind of lets you see what people are discarding
South
and what
wind.
people need, and that also is a strategy that you will have to learn if you want to play like a
7 characters.
MCR, Hong Kong, Taiwanese, all that kind of stuff,
Three
or the
dots.
the I think MCR is the tournament rules that they
6
use at the
dots.
World Championship, but it allows you to kind of see how other
8
people play the game.
bamboos.
So it gives you kind of a you know it gives you you don't
7
have to worry about
characters.
your hand, you just have to worry about what other people are throwing and what other people are
3
calling.
characters.
And I feel like that's good to focus on one thing or the other, because if you can master playing your hand,
North wind.
then being able to also try and get more familiar or master seeing people throw discards and
7
knowing exactly kind of
bamboos.
what's going on will make you a better player. So
4
that's why I thought
characters.
this activity was actually kind of good in a sense, because being able to multitask is not
6
something for everyone.
bamboos.
And I can say I'm pretty good at it, but well, I would like to think
South
so.
wind.
But some people may not be,
White
as good
dragon.
at doing that. So that's why I'm kind of just wanting to focus on one thing at a time with this series, is because I could jam pack everything into one episode and we'd be good to go.
9
And
characters.
there we go. Like I said, that 9 crack with 75 tiles left. I want to get rid of it because it's a hot tile.
White
No,
dragon.
9 was thrown and someone probably has one. So again, oh, and we're seeing the dragons get thrown. Very nice. Again, throwing those early on
North
is
wind.
actually even more important on this card because of the pun potential.
South
That's
wind.
huge. So again, this red dragon hasn't been thrown, so I'm going to get rid of it.
Red dragon.
So this 1 crack hasn't been thrown out, and I don't see a lot of odds for cracks.
North
So
wind.
I'm probably let's just go with the
4
yeah,
dots.
we're gonna get rid of it, because let's say this is
5
our only other
bamboos.
discard. Um, we're probably just gonna want to get rid of
1
it there.
character.
Okay, so there's our gap. We got the 1. But again, when you're doing this activity, you can obviously push for a win.
9
So you can do
bamboos.
it 2 ways. You can do it like the first game where you just get a hodgepodge of tiles that do absolutely nothing
2
together,
dots.
and then kind of pick and choose what you discard there. Um, which
6
is a good
dots.
strategy if you want to kind of learn more about
3
um,
characters.
kind of the simple basics of discarding safely,
4 bamboos.
or what is considered, defense. This activity, the second hand, is what you could do is you could start with that, and then
5
once you feel like
characters.
you kind of got a little better with that, you can
9
switch to
dots.
this one where maybe you play a hand with like maybe 1 or up to 3 maximum, because anything after
5
3 is
dots.
kind of like fair game, but up to 3 maximum
1 dot.
potential discards that you can pick, and then you can see kind of and again with this application you can go back and watch your replays,
7
which even
bamboos.
professional sports players do that. They
7
go back and
dots.
watch their replays and see, what could I have done better, or if I passed this,
3
what would have
dots.
happened. There's a lot of what ifs, and that's what the replay helps with, is kind
6
of saying like,
characters.
what if this happened, would it have changed the outcome? Most of the time it would be yes, but
2 dots.
playing a hand and having
2 characters.
some discards and knowing what ones to get rid of first,
3 dots.
that's actually probably the second skill that I would learn from this episode, because most of
Red
the time,
dragon.
we're playing to win, like at a normal table, and knowing what ones to get rid of, because I've seen a lot of people be on call and they have a
2
tile that's been in
characters.
their hand since the start, and they get rid of it at the end
2
because they were holding it
characters.
for joker bait, and now they're stuck with getting rid of a tile that someone may need. um, and it's just kind of unfortunate because
8
they lost the
bamboos.
game when they could have just thrown a tile early on, because
4
you can't really
bamboos.
predict what you're going to pick up in the Charleston. But if it's a do or die situation and you need a joker, then that's okay.
7
But
bamboos.
again, the way I see it is, and I've
9
noticed,
dots.
is getting rid of tiles that would be considered kind of hot in the early game is a
8
lot better than
bamboos.
holding it for a potential joker, because 9 times out of
Red
10 you're not going to
dragon.
get the joker with it anyways, and then the player that needs the tile is going to have a lot more time to build their
Red
hand up,
dragon.
so you're basically just helping them by holding the tile.
West wind.
um Basically, an instance that I can relate that to is if you're playing a wind hand and not a lot of people see winds going out, they may hold
7
them,
bamboos.
and they are then A, going to break their hand, or B, they're all going to get rid of them at once. And
8
if the
dots.
winds start coming out really early on and you're playing winds, you're really in a bad spot.
6
But
dots.
if people hold them until like maybe mid
West
game, then
wind.
you might already kind of know what you're going for, and then that allows
Kong.
exposures to go, okay, so here we go, kind of an
8
example with the
dots.
winds. um but we have a lot of north south, which,
2
wow, so
dots.
I don't know what they're doing here. Maybe an east west 1 2 3.
8
That seems like
bamboos.
a pretty probable case here. All right, so this is where, let's say the 6
5
bam,
bamboos.
someone definitely is playing it, so our hand is considered dead.
7 dots.
Of course, we could play a hand, obviously, with the tiles that we have, but I'm not trying to push a win right now on this case,
dragon.
just because it's, this video is for educational purposes.
4 dots.
And, I like to play worst case scenarios. So let's get rid of the north here.
wind.
This player did not want it, so we can definitely then assume they're doing east-west 1 2 3, getting rid of a flower as well. Again, there isn't really a hand with flowers in 4 west
Pond.
winds, so but again, they got rid of a flower, meaning they're probably
9
pretty
bamboos.
close to winning. So there's that 9. So again, that means I was the only player that needed it, so that makes
Green
it
dragon.
a cold tile. Ooh, okay.
9 bamboos.
And again, yeah, see, we have a winning hand,
8
but
dots.
again, we're just going worst case scenario with this video.
Green
So
dragon.
basically, to sum everything up with how to play defense,
8 characters.
my advice is to kind of, play a game or two online where you're not
Pung.
pushing for a hand, but you're kind of
9
just discarding
characters.
tiles to see kind of what happens. And you can fluctuate it. You can say, I would highly recommend that. Save tiles that,
Southwind.
people may want till the end, and kind of see if it
5
works out. If it works
characters.
out for you, then definitely play that way. Because again, like I said, I don't want anyone to switch their play
3
style
dots.
because of my video. I want you to kind of see what works best
6
and go with it.
bamboos.
If you like to hold the tiles till the end and then kind of hope for a joker, totally
Green
do it.
dragon.
But right now I'm just kind of demonstrating these activities because it'll allow you to
5
do them as well
dots.
and kind of make your own decision as to how you want to play from moving out.
5
But
bamboos.
my tips are the only thing that I assume
Flower.
you guys to take from these, because if I was telling you guys how to play the game, then basically everyone would kind of be lost, because
5
that's the beauty
characters.
about this game, and I've seen a lot of people comment, is I play a
3
lot differently than a lot of
characters.
people, and I still end up winning in a way
5
because I know my
bamboos.
own strategy and how I'm going to go about everything.
Green dragon.
But when it comes to playing defense, that's a skill that you're going to
2
need
dots.
regardless of how you play. And just kind of,
4
like I said,
dots.
just go through the activities and kind of see, and definitely last centiles here, so we can definitely get
Joker.
rid of the jokers here. We are going to need 1 extra discard, so
Flower.
probably get rid of a 4 bam here, yeah. But like I said, go through the activities and kind of just flip flop
4
kind of how you're going to
characters.
go about it. Like maybe try and play a hand to win, and then get those 3 tiles, like I said, or maybe 4, depending
Joker.
on how far in you are. Oh yeah, we're going to get rid of a 4 here.
4 bamboos.
And then just kind of go through it, and maybe
8
play a hand,
characters.
have some extra discards, see if you pass one or another, kind of what happens, just to get a feel for it,
7
because
dots.
again, saying things is a lot easier than being done.
7 dots.
And when you play a game that is pretty fast paced, and you're not as
Joker.
experienced with the topic, or I would guess I would call it maybe a what is the word for defense? Like kind of a skill. If you're not super familiar with the skill, then it's going to be a lot harder to execute both. So that's why again this activity I kind of didn't push for a win, because if you can play defense without pushing for a win, you'll be able to focus hard on that, and that'll allow you to get more, or at least get better at it in a way. And also you learn some other things by doing that as well, like seeing what people get rid of. Because that's a huge thing is, you may see a lot of tiles out on the table, but it's like, and even I've asked that before. It's like, did I pass them this, or did they throw that, or those kind of things go out a lot, and it is really hard to keep track of three players and all the tiles they get rid of. But once they start throwing up exposures, that's when the discards start becoming more important. And like I said, that's why also I don't like pushing a hand when I'm trying to learn how to play defense, is because then it allows me to really focus in on these three players as opposed to my hand. But again, you still have to put some sort of effort into like looking at the hand and figuring out, what tile what tile is considered cold versus hot, and just being able to keep two or three tiles in the front of your rack that you can get rid of at all times is pretty good. Because then it allows you kind of to switch. If like someone reveals a 2, this 4 may not be so safe, but if they throw up a 9 crack, then or let's say an 8 crack, then this 9 that we thought was safe, we can maybe move it on over depending on how many tiles are left, and then this 4 can move up, and then we can get rid of it. So um, showing defense is actually really hard, but I just wanted to throw out some tips and show you kind of how I go about practicing defense, and how I kind of learned how to play defense. I know in real life it's really hard to execute this, again, like I said, because a lot of people at the table may be like, what the heck, like, why are you basically playing to lose? And people may like, especially if you do this in a big group of players, they may not want to play with you. Because yeah, you're passing a lot of good tiles, and you're really not playing to win. You're just playing for defense. So, but yeah, again, like I said, key things to take away from this is just kind of go through the exercise, and then if you do watch any future videos of mine, you'll notice that I kind of, I'm not gonna play I'm gonna play to win, but I'll execute that three tile strategy that I was mentioning in the second game, where if you play to win, you have the three tile strategy. That's what I'll call it. And that is basically, again, where if you have a tile that could be considered joker bait, I usually get rid of that early on, because then that'll allow these two tiles that may be considered colder or not needed to be safer to discard when I'm close to my winning hand, instead of throwing a tile to be on call and that tile being used for someone to win. So again, this episode was a little bit of difficulty. Again, I was trying to think of a good way to do it, but I feel like this exercise is pretty good. But again, if it didn't make any sense to you, do not panic or worry. Just come to the live streams, and then again, future episodes will also incorporate the strategies from previous episodes. So do not worry at all. This strategy is one that will stay with me for a while. So and again, watching it through, if you can't understand it or don't know, comment down below. I could try and help you as much as I can. Otherwise, just keep watching gameplay or keep playing, and the more that you put into the game, the higher the outcome that you'll improve at the skill. So hopefully this episode did throw out some good tips for you guys. And if not, sorry. Next episode will be a way better one. Our next episode, I believe we're going to be focusing on is we're going to get into what I was saying earlier in the first episode, is probably a multi-part series, and that one's going to be switching hands. And I believe switching hands is also playing into defense as well. So again, it will definitely be incorporated in next episode and the ones to follow. But keep an eye out for that one. That one's going to be a pretty longer video because I'm going to try and incorporate more hands, because switching hands is not something that you can just learn right off the bat. So, but anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed. And if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Have a good day.